As we start our last segment of the day, I want to start with the quote that was sent to me by our presenter, Annette Saikon. When I became a mother, I realized that all my professional experience did not prepare me for the massive change that motherhood made in every area of my life. I began to develop a support group model in which mothers felt safe enough to share what was really going on for them, and which invited a diversity of mothers to find common ground and build community. That was the beginning of motherhood. Annette Saikon is the founder and director of training of Mother Woman. She has designed and led Mother Woman groups for over 10 years, and with Liz Friedman has designed and leads the Mother Woman Facilitator Training. She is certified by Postpartum Support International. She's presented both regionally and nationally on these topics and has also run Mother Woman groups for indigenous Guatemalan mothers in the Lake Atitlan region of Guatemala. She's the mother of two powerful young women and the daughter of Polish immigrants. Annette brings passion, humor, and commitment to her work, and I can certainly say that is true in the conversations I have had with her. So I invite up now for you Annette Saikon, who will be speaking on More Than Words, the Beauty of Mother Woman Group Support for Bereaved Parents. Annette.
All right, everyone. Thank you for that introduction, Lita, and thank you to Joy for yesterday's section of the conference and for the organization of these 2 days. I would like to invite everyone to take a nice, deep breath. Ready? Let's do that again. Ready? Oh, yeah, lifting the arms is good too. Lift your arms up. Oh, we've been sitting here, listening and feeling an awful lot. Nice deep breath and down. Okay, so we're going to do 3 things. I'm the last speaker of this 2-day conference on a very powerful, personal, and professional topic. And the room is full of a lot of emotion. I am full of a lot of emotion, as I know you are all too. It's impossible to hear and learn and listen to all of this for these 2 days and not be overwhelmed by feeling. Many of us come to this work because this is a reflection of our lived experience, many of us because of our professional experience, and an awful lot of us because it's both. So I don't really feel like giving a PowerPoint right now, and you probably don't feel like listening to one. So we're not going to do that. We're going to actually give everybody an opportunity to share. So I want to invite you at your table. You have 2 or 3 people at your table, which is perfect. All right, join, you can just with each other, 2 or 3 people. And I want to read for you the guidelines and principles from the Mother Woman Group model and the Empty Arms Bereavement Support model, which have been developed by myself and Liz Friedman, who's not here, and Carol McMurrick, the founder of Empty Arms, who's joining us by webcast. Hi, Carol. And her entire team at Empty Arms. They're sitting there in Massachusetts. So we start every Mother Woman Group experience and Empty Arms experience with a brief moment of reflection. So I ask you to put down your paper and your pencil, your phones, anything else in your hands, and take a nice deep breath. If you feel comfortable closing your eyes, you may do that. If you would rather soften your gaze, you may do that. And just begin by taking a nice cleansing breath. It's been a long day. And exhale out of open lips. And another few nice deep breaths, allowing the oxygen to course through your body and bring that oxygen to your blood cells out to the tips of your toes and your fingers and radiating into your heart, because that oxygen gives us energy, which we could all use a little bit of right now. And allow that breath to also bring yourself back into your body. Because again, we've been feeling a lot. And oftentimes when we feel a lot, we disconnect from our body. So I invite you to feel yourself firmly sitting in your chair. Feel your feet on the ground. Keep on breathing. And feel your body. Supported, safe, solid, grounded. And with your breath, feel what is true for you inside right now. After all this time, all these stories, what is it that's true for you? What are you feeling right now? It could be a whole lot of things. It could be one thing. There's no right or wrong. Know that your feelings are legitimate, valid, real, and welcomed. And that your presence at this 2-day conference has been important and valuable. You have probably been a teacher to somebody here, and you may not even know that. But your life story and your presence is a gift. So take another nice deep breath. Fill your body with oxygen and energy again. Don't fall asleep. And crinkle up your cheeks in that way that kind of looks like a smile. It's like that smile feeling, because when we put our faces in that shape, it often creates the feeling, a sweet, serene, peaceful smile. And when you feel ready to open your eyes, you may do so. And look around the room at the ladies who are still here. And I thank you for that. So we're going to have an opportunity for a little bit of sharing, because again, there's a lot of emotion here, and it's been an emotional 2 days. So I'm going to read to you from Carol McMurrick's Empty Arms Group Guidelines, which are based on ours. I'm only going to do 2 of them. When we share, we hold everything we share with confidentiality, which we know what that means. It means we don't talk outside of here about what we share here. But at Mother Woman and at Empty Arms, we take that confidentiality to the next level, which I think is really important. It makes us really different. And that is that we don't even share with each other what we've said in our check-ins. So if I'm talking to 3 women, I will know that they won't bring up to me what I've talked about in the circle outside in the hallway without asking my permission first, which gives me the complete safety in knowing that I can say whatever I need to say and no one is ever going to comment on it ever again. It's completely a private and confidential space. And the beauty of that lies in the fact that, A, there may be something that I would like to share that I'm scared of sharing. I'm not saying that's necessarily true about us today, all right? We're not like going to go deep into our deepest wound, okay? But I'm going to share with you the rationale for our guidelines. So you don't get nervous like, oh my God, what am I supposed to talk about? I'm only here for a few minutes. Okay, we're not doing that. But we can share what we may not be able to share in our support systems outside of the circle, or anywhere else, for instance. And that's a real blessing, to have one place where I can say that awkward thing or that scary thing or that thing that maybe it's too overwhelming for my support system to hear. Second of all, when I share the thing that I want to talk about in my check-in, the mere saying of it out loud can transform it, right? So I may need to vent like crazy about my husband and how I want to kill him because he drives me nuts. And this mere saying of it lifts that feeling, and I can go back to the love I have. But if I don't have that confidentiality, then you're going to only remember the fact that I can't stand my husband right now. And after group, you're going to say, gee, I feel the same way about my husband. And by that time, I'm going to be like, what are you talking about? I love the guy. So we keep that confidentiality even among ourselves. So best friends and sisters can sit in circle with each other, and they won't talk outside of circle about what was shared in that safe space. The other main guideline is that we listen to each other with compassion, respect, and non-judgment. Because each of one of us is doing life our own way. We each grieve our own way. We parent our own way. We're working with the tools we have, and nobody has the same toolbox. And each one of us is basically winging it, right? It doesn't matter how many letters you have after your name. If you've been a school teacher, or you have an MSW or an RN, when you close the door to your house, it's you and your life, and so we're all winging it every day. So we hold each other with that level of respect and non-judgment. The Empty Arms Group Principles. We know that losing a baby is an isolating and devastating experience. In our groups, we support bereaved parents by naming the incredible challenges we are facing, knowing that this group is one of the few places where we can speak the truth about the depth of our emotions and the details of our experience. We believe that speaking the truth about the heartbreaking journey of losing a child is essential. Here, we always consider healing to be a journey and not a destination. Healing comes through the understanding of what we've been through and what may lie ahead. By speaking about our experiences, they can start to become integrated into who we are and allow us to move along. We celebrate breaking the silence that bereaved parents have historically been subjected to. In these sessions, we do not compare losses. We respect that each and every person's experience is uniquely challenging in its own right. Regardless of the gestational age of our baby when he or she died, we all hoped that we would have a lifetime with that child that's growing within us. Consequently, we all have the right to grieve our loss and support each other in our grief. So, what I would love to invite us all to be able to do right now, again, because there's so much here in these last 2 days, and I loved what Sari said, there's a lot of love in the room. I won't forget that. There is a lot of love in this room. So I want to give each of us an opportunity to take a minute or two with each other and share what is it that you're feeling and what do you know about yourself. What are you feeling right now, and what do you know about yourself? So you can find a talking object. One of those chocolates in the middle of the table would work just fine. We always use a stone or a heart or a Lego if that's all we've got. Chocolate will do beautifully. And the first person will share what she's feeling and what she knows about herself. And I want to invite one of the others in the table to reflect back to her. And this is something we do at Mother Woman groups too. I hear what you're saying is, and what I see in you is. Brief, 2 sentences. What I hear you saying is, and what I see in you is. So let's take a few minutes to just share a minute about what it is we're feeling and what we know about ourselves. All right? So if you'd like to join a table of 2 so that we have mostly tables of 3, that would be terrific. All right? Yeah, go ahead. You're 2, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. I'll give you about 10 minutes total for this. So it's really just a couple of minutes of, the ability to share what this conference has brought up for you and what you're feeling right now. Okay, thanks. I'll be back in a minute. So yesterday someone said, relationship forms the bridge from suffering to hope. That's really at the heart of the Mother Woman in Empty Arms model. I'm going to do this part quickly so we can get into more fun stuff. Mother Woman is a nonprofit organization that I founded 25 years ago when my children were little. They're 24 and 22 right now. And I had a social work degree. I was a family therapist. I had resources, and I thought, oh, this motherhood thing's going to be a piece of cake. Just going to plop this baby out of my strong Polish hips, stick her on my backpack, and go out and dig some more potatoes. And in fact, that didn't happen at all. It was a lot more devastating and challenging and full of grief and despair than I had ever experienced anything. And it took me completely by surprise. And 25 years ago, women weren't talking about the difficulties of motherhood, let alone postpartum depression. Like that, no one even mentioned that. And, infant loss, I had a miscarriage. It was completely swept under the rug. It was like, oh, well, that's over. Next, And so motherhood, the main guideline in motherhood was just be strong and be tough, be grateful. Your life is now for your children, and what more do you want? Does that sound familiar to anybody? Who had their kids 20 years ago or more? Okay, right. How about 15 years ago or more? Does that message still stand? Yeah, okay. That message still stands even now. And so I created this organization so that women could have a safe place to come to talk about the reality of our lives. Because when women start talking, we get each other and we heal each other by our stories. So our mission is to support and empower mothers to create positive personal and social change. Whoops. And we do that by building community safety nets, impacting family policy, and promoting the resiliency and leadership in women. I love that, the leadership and resilience of women. We do that in a number of different program areas, again, which I won't go into that much. But we do policy work. We do a community-based perinatal support model, which is this pamphlet that's on many of your tables. This is something we're really proud of that I'm not going to talk about because I don't have enough time, but this is coalition building model for perinatal support. And it's really worth looking at. And our Mother Woman group model, what I discovered was that women really got a lot out of speaking to each other. And women kept saying to us, can you offer us a group for teen moms? Can you offer me a group for moms with children with disabilities? I'm a Latina woman. I'd love to have a group in my neighborhood with women in my own language, on and on. I'm a grandmother. How about the issues that face grandmothers who are raising their children, or infant loss and bereavement? Carol McMurrick is the founder of Empty Arms, and she had been running Empty Arms for a number of years. And Empty Arms is an organization that serves families in Western Mass whose babies have died through miscarriage, stillbirth, or early infant loss. By cultivating personal connections, creating a compassionate community, and fostering professional collaboration, We provide grieving parents with valuable resources and validation to navigate the murky days, weeks, and the lifetime to follow without their baby. And they have a number of program areas. But the real reason is Carol's own story. And this is Carol with 4 of her 5 children. What you don't see behind her sign is she's pregnant with little Fiona. And that's Liam, Maeve, and Afa that they're holding. But 13 years ago, in her first pregnancy, she lost her baby, Charlotte, who was born still. And the grief, as we all have been talking about, how it was completely devastating. And at that time, there was no support that she could find. And although she had lots of resources and family and really good support system, there was nobody who had been through what she had been through. And that made all the difference to her. I think she Googled a mom in Georgia to find someone who had experienced what she had experienced. And she said, just knowing there was one more living person on this earth who had felt the devastation that she did made all the difference. So she started Empty Arms and now runs weekly support groups for miscarriage, infant loss, and parenting after loss. And she was a really great facilitator. And we said, Carol, we want you to come and take the Mother Woman Facilitator training. She's like, no thanks, I'm good. I know how to do this, I'm great. My program's really wonderful. And we're like, no, I know, Carol, I know, but we want you to learn this and tell us what you think. Give us your feedback. Let us know what you think. She said, okay, I'll do that. And she came to our training and said, I'm not so sure it's gonna work for my population. This sharing is too raw, people are feeling too much emotion. But she said, I'm gonna try it. So she came back to her group, which is mothers and fathers and partners. And she started her group in a slightly different way using the Mother Woman model. And she came back to us and said, in one session, everything changed. People were sharing at a deeper level than they ever had before. And it was particularly powerful for the men in the room who had been deferring to their wives and to the mothers as the primary locus of grief. And so then support of her, many times they were not sharing their grief with her. But in this safe circle where they were given permission to also share and given that stone or the heart, the power of that was palpable. And partners cried for the first time. And partners said to each other, I never knew you felt that way. And Carol's been doing the Mother Woman model ever since and insisted that all of her programming facilitators use the same model. So that was a huge compliment. Thanks, Carol. Our support group model is based on creating safety, education, and empowerment. And when we talk about empowerment, we talk about moving from powerless to empowerment by reclaiming the stories of our lives. That's how we do it. By hearing ourselves speak and be heard, and by listening to other people, we experience that magical thing. And empowerment isn't something you can measure or that you can even see, but it's a felt thing. You know when you feel it, right? You can't necessarily describe it, and it's become very overused, that word, but I still love it because it names something that we know when we're experiencing it. It may be that rush of adrenaline I feel when I feel I need to speak up to my boss, or that rush of adrenaline I feel when I need to advocate to myself for my doctor, or that rush of adrenaline that I feel, or that quiet power that I feel around advocating for myself around my baby's loss. So we really use that as one of the cornerstones of our group model. It's also a trauma-informed model, and what that means is that we listen to each other and we develop consistency in the experience that women can have where they know what they're walking into and that it's always going to feel safe and deliberate. Healing and transformation is available when we engage in dialogue. I love that, right? It's being with each other. It's not doing. It's nothing we do, but it's the simple act of being, which we've been hearing for the last 2 days also. And obviously, when you're grieving the loss of a baby, there's nothing to be fixed. There's nothing to be done. But the simple act of being with is the thing that heals trauma over time and in the moment as well. It's okay to be human and flawed. And the group empowerment model allows for the knowledge that redemption is possible. In hearing your story, I know that, okay, if she can do it, I can do it. And I don't feel like I can do it, but she said that she felt this way too. And so that's going to create that safety for me to hold on to as a lifeline while I'm going through all of this. We're healed not only by our own story, but by hearing each other's. Infant loss is a trauma. There is some discussion in the field about whether it's complicated grief or trauma. And I attended a conference in Chicago in October, and there was this discussion about whether infant loss was complicated grief or whether it was trauma. And everyone in the room who's in the field all stood on the side of trauma. And I think that's really a true statement for anyone who's experienced. It's like, obviously. Carol says, for the bereaved parent, the death of our child is not an event. It's not something that happens one time and then it's over, like a car accident or, being thrown out of our house or even a divorce for that matter. But it's something that's ongoing and will affect the rest of our lives in an unusually deep way, unlike almost anything else. It's a trauma that affects us. It's a defining moment in our lives, and it's present every single day. It lives at the core of who we are and who we're going to continue to be. As Sari so beautifully said in her final mosaic piece, the colors come back, but it's always there as the backdrop. And you'll never know whether, in fact, you're going to be triggered that day. I was moved when Carol described to me dropping off her son Liam at school. And I hope you don't mind me sharing this, Carol. It wasn't in the circle and I wasn't holding a stone. She's nodding her head, I can tell. Okay, Carol, I hear you. But I was very moved to hear her say that when she dropped off her son at school on the first day of school, she saw a bunch of girls running out of school. And she knew that those would have been Charlotte's classmates. And she saw them running out, and they don't know Carol. But if Charlotte had been alive, those little girls would have been at sleepovers at her house. She would know those girls really, really well. And once again, in this innocent moment of dropping her son off at school, making sure he's got his backpack and his lunch and his sneakers and his permission slip for one thing or the other, right? She's hit by this moment of missing Charlotte. And that's the kind of thing that is constantly there in differing degrees. And being able to talk about that over time is important. In a support group can be a place where you can share, again, 13 years later, I'm still feeling triggered. Lots of other people in her life may not be able or willing to hear that, but other parents who've gone through it, yeah, absolutely. The isolation that parents are experiencing is intense, and it's everywhere. You can't go shopping in the store, and there's a mom with a baby in the baby carriage. You can't watch a movie because there's somebody in the movie who has the name of your child. You can't go to a baby shower. Everywhere there are triggers all around. Our society is wrapped around the whole notion of happy mommies and babies. And so therefore, it feels in some ways like you're violating a cultural norm. The cultural norm is that if you're in childbearing age, your peer group's having babies. Everywhere you look, people are having babies. So it's really hard and nearly impossible to regain your footing again because you're getting triggered constantly. You don't want, like in Kylie's movie yesterday, her sister was pregnant. She loves her sister. She wanted to be there for her sister, and she couldn't. She just couldn't. Her sister was wonderful, understanding about it. But what a loss for Kylie to know that she couldn't participate in her own cultural peer group in the way that she would have loved to have done. She just couldn't do it. So this is a piece that Carol speaks about, and I think it's fascinating and interesting to think about, that grieving a child who has died violates many of our cultural norms, right? We don't have cultural, we're not comfortable with death anyway, but let alone the death of a child. So it violates a cultural norm. Well, besides the fact that it's not what you're expecting a completely different outcome, and within 24 hours or 48 hours or something like this, your whole world gets rocked. But given that, we don't spend time with deceased people. We don't hold dead people skin to skin. We don't dress them. We don't wash them. In our own culture, in other cultures, we do. Death is much more integrated in life. And so is the death of peers and parents and grandparents and babies. When I was in Guatemala and we were doing our check-in, and I had asked women the ages of their children, they would all automatically name all their children. They'd say, I have 6 living children and 3 children who have died. Everyone. That was the way they all identified themselves. And that was a beautiful thing. It was completely, there was no stigma around that. It was completely acceptable. And because it was common. It's very common, and so therefore it was more integrated as part of the rituals in the life. But here, a woman without a baby is not a mother. A woman losing a baby makes you invisible. It's still your identity. It's the most profound change, fundamental profound change in your entire life, and nobody sees it. So how are you supposed to operate in the world if nobody sees you? Experiencing the most fundamental change in your life that takes years to recover from. We have no role models or reference points of what's normal. We don't even know what normal looks like. We're alone in our peer group. We're invisible. We want to share our story, but we know that it makes other people uncomfortable. We're afraid of what they may say back to us because of all the insensitive things that people don't know any better to say because they're uncomfortable. Therefore, bereaved parents are silenced and silence ourselves. So we talked a lot these last 2 days about the awful things that people say. That's sort of, it's a cliche about the cliches now. So I want to do another exercise. There are all these things which people say to us, and they're not inherently an incorrect truth. It's not inherently wrong that the loss will make us strong. It's not inherently wrong that having other children will help heal this loss. It's not inherently wrong that this baby has created a new mission in our lives. But we have to come to that ourselves. That realization is part of our own healing process. And maybe we start telling ourselves these statements to ourselves over time. But when they come to us from somebody else, it feels almost like an assault. It hurts deeply. But it may be the exact same thing that if I say to myself is part of my healing journey. So I have another exercise I want you to do because it's the end of the day and we need to get up because it's late and we're in a room with a little teeny weeny little ray of sunshine over there. So let's all stand up and find one partner, just so pairs. Find a pair. Anybody, doesn't matter. Find a pair because you're going to move and find another pair in a second. There you go. Matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match. Okay. And one person in the pair, I want you to say one of these statements as if you're speaking to a bereaved parent. Just one. This loss will make you strong. And then the other person will be the bereaved parent and will say it from an I statement instead. The same statement, but from an I statement. And then move on to the next person and do the same thing again with perhaps a different statement All right? One person say it from a, you will be made more strong. This is part of the plan. All of these things that we talk about that are so inappropriate to say. And then say it from the I and see if it's different. All right. And if this is your experience, you can say the I from your own experience. This loss has made me more strong. Just one statement piece, and then find another partner. Say bye-bye. Hello. And then to the next person, another one sentence. So pick another one of these sentences that we have designated as being politically incorrect, and say it first from the, you're going to have other children. Don't worry, you're going to have other children. And then from the I statement, what's true about it for you from an I statement about your other children? And try, I know this is hard, but in time you're going to feel better. Try the last one, or the third one, whichever one. What was that like? Was there a difference? Did anybody notice a difference between having the same statement said to you and saying the same statement about yourself?
I know it's hard, but in time I will feel better. Yes. It was empowering. When someone else said it, it's taking the power.
Exactly. It sounds like a platitude. It sounds trite. And in fact, people do say those things because they don't know what else to say. It's hard to be with grief. You feel powerless, and you know you can't fix it. So you say things like, in time you will feel better. But when you say it to yourself, it feels empowering. Yes. Anyone else want to share? Sorry, please. Yeah, I definitely want to hear what you have to say.
So I have some really strong feelings about this crisis, so I had to change the language in my response.
Of course.
So one of the examples. I'll repeat it. I have some really strong feelings about these statements, and so in our pair, I couldn't repeat it in the I form. I had to change the language
Totally.
to make it fit with
Yes.
what resonates with me.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the examples was, this baby must have had a mission or purpose for your life, and I couldn't say it back, so I had to say, Jacob has impacted my life in so many ways, and I don't even remember my exact phrasing, but he has impacted every aspect of my life and has helped me change my own perspective.
Exactly. Your own words come forward as authentic for you, but they come from you. They're self-actualized in you. I mean, I heard you say it here on the podium, and everyone has said that I've met this whole 2 days, it was the hardest thing I'd ever experienced, but it's changed my life, and now I'm doing this work for other people, and in that way, my baby's legacy lives on in one form or another, is how I've heard that. And so for us to realize that difference, that the statement is not inherently bad, but the statement needs to come from within, and in fact, it's part of our healing.
I had written down cliches that come from yourself, ? Because over the last couple of days, I realized that in my own losses, I said a lot of these things, and I was like, gosh, was I beating up on myself? Was I repressing and, not giving myself space? But it really helped to hear you say that it is completely different when you're saying these things to yourself as a way of coping and being resilient versus somebody else. It's kind of like I can talk shit about my mom, but no one else can. So it really just thank you for saying that, because it really does. And this exercise shows me that, when it does come from someone else, it's completely different. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you very much. This is an example from an Empty Arms group that sort of illustrates this. What time are we at? Oh dear. I'm so grateful for Matthew, said Mariah with tears streaming down her face. I desperately still miss Jamie. I miss him every day. But he's helped me to have an indescribable gratitude and love for my living son, Matthew. If someone told her that, that would not feel at all good to her. Your dead son is going to make you love your living son better. You're going to want to slap that person. But it came from her heart, and so it was deeply powerful for her to say. Oh, we have a comment. Wendy.
Well, it was a question from before, but or a share. Just writing on what you're saying, my experience of that exercise was that when I could find, and like if I were actually practicing this in the world, which I'm going to do now, is that I only perceive that as a judgment, as a statement of judgment against me or something bad that the person has said, if I'm running that in myself already as a judgment.
As a self-judgment.
As a self-judgment. Otherwise, it would just kind of bounce off. I don't think just wouldn't land. But in what I experienced was this little space inside of me that I'm going to take forward in my life when someone says something and I go, that was shitty. and I'm going to repeat it back to them. And because what it did was it opened me to accept their loving. It just, instead of going into judgment against them and against myself, I chose to open to loving that they're trying to give me.
Thank you.
And it was just a little tiny space inside of me to go, I'm going to accept that, and I'm going to say it back. And in the saying it back, my heart opened to myself and then to them. And I really am going to take this with me to cocktail parties or whatever when someone says something stupid to me. And I'm just going to go, we're all doing the best we can to love each other on this planet. And sometimes we make really stupid mistakes, but I don't have to judge them or me. So I'm really grateful.
Thank
you.
Thank you for that. So we married the Mother-Woman Group model and the Empty Arms Bereavement model together, and it's a replicable and facilitated model that creates environments of safety and mutual respect for women to share their stories and begin their lifelong journey of healing. And this is also true for the Mother-Woman model. And I want to segue the commercial break. I've gone to most tables here and told you that after I'm done talking, I'm going to raffle off a copy of our perinatal support group curriculum that we've just recently published, which is a step-by-step lesson plan for people who run support groups for postpartum mothers. It can be adapted for bereavement groups, and Carol and I are working on Carol, you're working on a curriculum, particularly for groups where bereaved parents. So this is going to be a takeaway gift for somebody who would like to know about how to do that. And also, Joy and the 2020 Mom Project are bringing us back next year sometime, within the next 12 months. We're finding the right time, the sweet spot, to come back and conduct our 3-day training, because that can be replicated in all different kinds of, for all different kinds of scenarios. So we're looking forward to that too. Because why recreate the wheel? And I know that Miss has a wonderful facilitation program or a group program, and everybody does, but why recreate the wheel? Why not use a model that's tried and true and replicable, and it works every time. So we're looking forward to coming back and training that. More than words. Like looking in a mirror, this is Carol's words, like looking in a mirror, you can't watch yourself grow. So in the journey of bereavement, you can't watch yourself grow. You're still in the feeling, and you can't see the growth that's happening. But in the group, you see your growth through the journey and the stories of others. So when you hear another woman share, you realize, I'm not there anymore. That's amazing, because I don't feel as if I've moved. I'm still crying every day. I still can't do certain things, but I am sleeping and I am eating, and I have done this next step. And similarly, women who are in early stages of the grieving process, by hearing a woman's story who's farther along, is inherent illustration, inherent fact, inherent, what's the word I'm looking for? Knowledge. There's a word I'm looking for. It's easy. I can't. Thank you. Validation. Thank you. It's inherent validation that it's true. I will heal. I will get better. Because if you can do it, I can do it. So we can watch ourselves grow, which I love. If we have a peer support group, as you run, it's a safe place to share the crushing grief with people who get it, to share everything that comes up through the grief process with people that get it, to say or feel what might be unacceptable, or you just don't know what it is. I'm still sleeping with the baby's blanket. Is that weird? It's like, no, of course that's not weird. But if you ask somebody who's not a bereaved parent, or even a therapist or someone else, they're not going to have the right answer. They're not going to have the right answer for you necessarily. But other bereaved parents, yeah, that's not weird at all. Or I don't know what to do with the baby's room. What do I do with the baby's room? Like Kylie's with the baby gift, she threw it in the trash. She needed to get rid of it. Her husband needed to bring it back. She needed to get rid of it. He needed to bring it back. These two people were going through their grief process completely on parallel paths in the same house. It was so painful to hear. Wouldn't they have loved to sit in a group with other couples to say the same thing? We're both grieving and we're not communicating. That way they won't feel quite so alone and isolated. Also, to be able to express frustration that you're not supposed to say out loud, like, my mother's driving me crazy. She keeps calling me. She keeps bringing me stuff. I know she means well, but she's saying all these things. I really just want to be left alone, but I don't want to hurt her feelings because she's grieving too, and on and on and on. There are all kinds of beautiful people that we love in the world, but sometimes we just want them to go away. And we have to be able to have a place to vent about that with someone who's, who can say, yeah, I totally get that. And then through the venting, you may come to a very different experience of your feelings about them, but you needed some place to say the incorrect thing about your mother, husband, sister, neighbor, whomever. Like the woman in the phone call had to have a place to vent about, the pain that she felt from other people. It's a safe place to be known forever as your baby's mother or father. And there's no sense of violating cultural norms. Everybody sharing pictures and telling the birth story and all these kinds of details which you relish and need to have, those precious, precious memories, which aren't necessarily welcome in intimate detail in your social circle, but in group, everyone wants to hear. You begin to feel that ray of hope, and it may be the only place where the child who's died becomes the priority and the focus of conversation. We're busy. We get busier. You mentioned this too, Sari. It's like, we get busier and busier and busier, and if we have other kids, we're on their schedule, and parenting and living in the world is there's a lot to do. And when you go to cocktail parties or family functions or Thanksgiving or whatever, everyone's talking about your current life, because that's the main method of main conversation. What are the kids doing? How's work? What are you doing? Da, 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 all about your current life. Here's one place where the only thing that if you want to talk about the baby that you lost, you can talk about him or her at length. And some people, you probably experience this too, come back to group a year later or 5 years later because it's the only place. Or they may not come in their month by month, like you said, but they come to the walk or they come to the beach, ceremony, or they come to group once in a while on the anniversary or something because it's the place where they can just talk about this thing that is so precious and important. It's a quote that I adore. Listening is a magnetic and strange thing. It's a creative force. The friends who listen to us are the ones we move toward. When we're listened to, it creates us. It makes us unfold and expand. When we are listened to, not when we are talked at, but when we are listened to. So for those of us in the helping professions, this is good information, because we feel sometimes that we have to say the right thing, and we have to have the magic, wise statement that's going to soothe and healing balm. But as Rana said in her last presentation, it's often just being with and listening that is more healing than talking. And in a support group, when it's facilitated by someone who allows everyone equal airtime, then we each get a chance to share. And one of the things that I was sharing with Joy this morning, and she said, you've got to say that in your talk, is one of the things that Carol had noticed as a big difference between one group model and the other. She says, in the beginning, I used to offer my support groups, and I would share and talk about what we're going to talk about, and then I would say, who'd like to go first? And she said, that's kind of common. Who'd like to go first? Because you don't want to push anybody to speak when they're not comfortable. We have, people who are comfortable talking and people who aren't. And we think that we're being respectful by putting it out there. But what often happens in situations like that is people like me and Joy, who are big talkers, and we want to make sure that nobody else in the room is uncomfortable, and I'm not afraid to speak, and I feel bad because I can tell that you're quiet and you're crying, and I don't want you to feel bad, so I'll say what I need to say first, and I'll talk. And the next person will talk, and then the conversation will go in that direction. And perhaps it's the people who aren't talking and aren't sharing are the ones who need to talk the most. And so in our model, we use the talking object. The facilitator will never do anything, will never ask anyone to do something that I don't do first. So I always share first. It models for the group what we're allowed to talk about here, how deep we're allowed to go. It gives everybody a breath. I break the ice, diminishes a lot of the anxiety. I share from my current experience, and then I pass that beautiful stone, Lego, chocolate bar, whatever it is that I've designated as sacred, to the next person. And she or he has to consciously choose not to share, to pass it, which is perfectly okay. There's always the option. And then the stone will come back around to that person if they would like to go after everyone has spoken. But what she says is that given, and what I've experienced for 15, 20 years, is that the minute you hold that thing, you're speaking from a deeper, different place. And you say what you may not even think you want to say, or you planned on coming to group to say, you share something else. And I think we noticed that yesterday in the lunch group as well, that we passed around this beautiful stone that I really wanted to take home with me, but she took it back. I tried, but oh well. And the sharing is from this very, very deep core place. And particularly, she was saying, for people who are reticent to speak, and I notice this all the time, shy women, introverted women, women who say, I'm not a group person, I don't like to talk in groups, I'm really uncomfortable doing this. If we patiently wait with love and compassion, the tears start to come, and she says what she needs to share, or he shares what he may not have shared before. And it's a powerful thing. So I was really grateful to her to help to distinguish, one of the simple things that creates that kind of a safe environment. I'm going to close because we were going to close with a reflective exercise, but we started with it because Rana set me up with all this intensity. So I'm going to close with this lovely thought that I think is beautiful. The word companion, the Greek root of the word companion is to break bread. And so, can we offer ourselves to be companions along the journey of grief and breaking bread together, which is the simplest, most profound and beautiful activity and act that we do in love every day with the people who are closest to us. I want to close with a quote from Carol. My grief and yearning for Charlotte used to be a crippling weight. I would wake up every morning certain that I could not survive one more day without her. 13 years later, my grief is still always with me, but now it feels like a backpack that I carry with me wherever I go. Most days, it's not uncomfortable, though I'm always aware that it's there. Her death was the most profound change and unbearable pain that I have ever experienced. But even from the moment she was born, I was steeped in gratitude for her short life. I have worked hard to keep Charlotte with me, to create positive change and allow her life's purpose to continue to unfold. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Annette before she steps down?
Wendy participated in our 3-day training in Washington State last year, so we appreciate your being here.
That's what I was going to say.
Oh.
I did the training at Bastyr University that they offer, and it's and I've been in a lot of women's circles and support groups and led some, and it's not just passing a piece, it's the energetic transfer I got of how to do the model when I was present with you in person, and how to hold that energy like level in the container. And it's so elegant what you're doing. It's simple and elegant, and it works. And I just wanted to support you, so I stood up. It's beautiful.
Thank you. This is where we're going to be. I did not ask her to do that or pay her to do that, and she's not getting the curriculum because she did that. Thank you. But we're going to be in these places in the next 12 months, and we're going to be here again. So if you're interested in this, and we've been talking to a number of different organizations who are here today to co-sponsor with 2020 the 3-day training, again, it can be used for women in recovery, for women with domestic violence history, and all kinds of populations of women. So, and we're translating the model into Spanish as well. So, thank you. Oh, wait, the drawing. Okay, you're picking it, Lita. Oh, I am. Yeah, you're picking it, because otherwise it'll be cheating, right? All right. Drum roll. Come on, everybody, drum roll. Oh. Well, okay, who is it? Oh.
I am going to kill your last name.
No, it says how it's pronounced.
Where?
That's the way it's
Does Katayun? Katayun? All right.
Yay!
You are the winner.
Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure to be here these last 2 days. I feel very moved and honored to have been invited. Thank you.
We just wanted to thank everyone for coming the last 2 days. 2020 Mom wishes to thank Lita and Strategies for their amazing support. We wouldn't be able to do this great work without you.
That's so sweet.
And everyone, we really would love your honest feedback. The evaluation will come out later this week in email. And also all of you that have joined us by webcast, thanks for being with us. And we felt your energy and excitement along the way as well. And we would love to hear your feedback on ideas for next year's forum in the evaluation as well. So thanks again for being with us.
Okay. And just when you get that email, don't ignore it, because the email for the evaluation, because it's also your certificate of completion of the course, and for those of you with CEs, it'll also be your CE cert as well. So you have to fill it out if you want the CEs. Okay. Thank you all. This was wonderful. Thank you.